Welcome back. Red light cameras and license plate readers. Tonight we discuss both. First, in the state legislature, it has become an annual effort to eliminate red light cameras. What was once seen as an important tool to prevent serious accidents has become the target of continual efforts to repeal. Meanwhile, the city of Sarasota has voted not to add license plate readers to its system, even though some local communities use them to fight crime. And joining us for more is Susan Nylon of the ACLU, private investigator Bill Warner, and ABC7's Dwayne Lindo. Dwayne, I know that some of the opponents in Tallahassee and around the state oppose red light cameras because they believe that local law enforcement agencies and local communities are only using them to raise revenue.
Yeah. Like the House Speaker even mentioned that it's all about raising revenue. And once one House member said, and I quote, nearly half the money collected from red light violations goes to vendors that provide these cameras. So that's one of the issues that the House basically the House has.
Right, and Bill, that was a big issue in Bradenton, which you're familiar with, that the city itself, there were a lot of discussions about how much the vendors there were charging and their take and not going to the city, and that has led to a whole bunch of things in terms of red light cameras in Bradenton.
That's a big problem. That kind of annoys me to hear this because I didn't realize the vendors were taking almost, 50%? That's outrageous. I mean, it's supposed to be a safety issue. We're supposed to keep people from going through red lights. Why is it such a monetary thing for the vendors?
Right. And Susan, this has been problematic in a lot of communities around here, but you have to feel for people like Melissa Wendell, who lost her husband in this way, and there are people who believe that this is a matter of the safety of the driving public.
Yeah, I'd have to take a look at the statistics, though, to see how much of an improvement we've seen when there are red light cameras. I don't necessarily believe that it deters people from running them. People who run them for a lot of reasons. A lot of times because they're just not paying attention. Getting a ticket afterwards isn't going to prevent an accident. It's not going to prevent somebody from running a red light. So I get the safety part of it, but there's a lot of other things we're giving up because of it. Okay, we are just getting warmed up, and we'll have much more on red light cameras and license plate readers. Right now, we check the first alert weather. Stay with us. Sarasota Police Chief Bernadette DePino is a fan of the license plate camera. She says if her staff is gathering more information and plans to approach commissioners in the near future in hopes of changing their minds. And joining us once again is Susan Nylon of the ACLU, private investigator Bill Warner, and ABC7's Dwayne Lindo. Susan, is your concern the use of these cameras for situations like the police describe, or the misuse potentially of this technology? Well, it's definitely the misuse. I mean, it's wonderful to say that people who are not involved in a crime aren't going to be tracked, but that information has to be put into the system somehow. Who's to say that somebody isn't going to put your information in because they're looking for something that has nothing to do with an actual crime but want to track you? Or say, for example, there's somebody's leaking information to the press, and all of a sudden, they're meeting you in a certain location, and they monitor that location through these cameras, and they figure that the same person, every time you're there, somebody else is there. That's going to be a problem. There's going to be a lot of issues that have come up.
Bill, I would imagine that you are a fan of these cameras, but you could see, in fact, I believe you can extrapolate this issue to what's happening in Washington early on in the Trump administration, when there's a lot of discussion of who is picked up on foreign surveillance, that maybe people can be picked up as being located on Longboat Key that did nothing wrong except for being there, and could the information be misused?
A friend of mine recently drove over to Longboat Key, didn't realize that his driver's license had expired. Okay, he got stopped. They treated him very fairly. They did not give him a ticket. They gave him a warning. He was not a wanted criminal. He wouldn't got his license taken care of. End of story. No, I don't believe this. Look at the Austin serial bomber. The reason they caught him is because of surveillance photos of his vehicle. The license plate was put out on a bolo. Look for this vehicle. They found it through license plate readers on the vehicles of the sheriff's department and the police department, and they also used the the surveillance with the cell phone to track him to the motel, and also they stopped him on the road. They found him using the license plate reader.
Right. Dwayne, I would imagine, well, number one, Longboat Key is a different kind of situation because there's one access point and one point where you could leave the island, or the key, I should say. But when you're dealing with a community like Sarasota, which is diverse, has different neighborhoods and different concerns, you can imagine people in some communities might not be too happy about that.
And that's the reason why Sarasota Vice Mayor Liz Alpert said, look, this may be an invasion of privacy because you have, Sarasota is a bigger city, you have a small island, Longboat Key, that's with a number of residents, maybe visitors, that you may not see it too often, but you may get those alerts quite more or a lot more than you would Longboat Key than in Sarasota.
Right, but privacy concerns on one hand, Susan, we live in a dangerous world right now, and we always hear about London. London has cameras everywhere.
Yep. Been there myself.
And where things still may happen there, but it does give law enforcement a great advantage in being able to identify people who do something wrong.
Yeah, I'm not discounting the advantage that it gives law enforcement, and you're right, there's a lot of examples where it's really helped solve crimes that couldn't have been solved any other way. The concern is what happens to all the other information. The concern is how long do they keep that information in record? And what do they do beyond that? Who's actually looking at this information, and are they going to outsource it to private companies, or is it going to stay within the police force? Those are all those questions, and without the right policies in place, everything should be a concern.
Bill, is that a fair enough point? Because obviously in your friend's situation, he was treated quite fairly, but we've seen so many instances in our own American experience, including the bulk collection of data, which has a lot of people suspicious of what Big Brother is doing with it.
All right. I have access to the Florida DMV on license plates. The only information that I can get, or anybody can get from that, name, address, date of birth, so forth. There's nothing else there. There's no big conglomerate of information. And besides that, in the Eighth Circuit Court in Missouri, they ruled that it is not a violation of your Fourth Amendment right.
Susan,
Except I would have to say that if they start to track you, they take your license plate and they track that you went to the store, they track whether you went to church, maybe they track that you go out and party too much every night. I mean, we just are giving a lot more information than just our license plate.
Right, and Dwayne, as you said, that there are different parts of the community that may be more apt to have hits that come up on the system than others. Is this something that you describe what the commissioner is saying in terms of the reservations from her part, but are there reservations in the community in general?
Yeah, that's the reason why the commission decided not to do this. So, I mean, you're going to have this issue from here on in. I don't think the commission at this point, if it comes up again sometime later, I don't think the commission approves this, but we'll see what happens.
Susan, would you be more open to this idea if, whether it's the city of Sarasota or other communities, come up with very specific policies and regulations governing them?
Yeah, I definitely would be open to it. I'd want to know where all the information that they gather that they aren't using to solve crimes. I'd want to know the policies that are in place and the balance between my personal right to privacy versus somebody who has broken the law. And I'm not necessarily willing to give that up just because they need to do a better job at finding those criminals.
Bill,
Go
ahead.
It's already out there. Most law enforcement has a license plate reader on their dashboard of their vehicle. It's been out there for years. This is nothing new. They just want to put it in certain strategic spots to catch some bad people.
Yeah,
They're not looking to track people. It's not. I don't think that's the purpose.
And we've opposed a lot of those for quite some time. I mean, our concerns about license plate readers and red light cameras have gone back for decades. So this is nothing new to us either.
No.
But when you're dealing with the license plate on your car, obviously that is something that is visible to the public.
Yep.
You could, and if there is a warrant for your arrest or any other information, if it's in plain sight for all the world to see, why not
Because it's not whether it's in plain sight, it's whether you're tracking me. You're finding out exactly where I go, what I do, and when I do it. And then it's what happens to that information once you collect it. It's wonderful if everybody is doing it for the best of intentions, but when it gets to be nefarious in intention, then what happens? We've seen plenty of circumstances. There are a lot of cases out there that the police have used this information without a search warrant, without jurisdiction of the courts, and they just start gathering the information, and it's.
We only have a couple of seconds left, Bill, but I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Okay. I just don't see. I don't see what this tracking is all about. I'm not aware of any kind of tracking used by the license plate readers. It's used for one purpose only: to read the license plate. Is the person wanted? Is the vehicle stolen? I don't understand where you're getting this tracking from. I have no knowledge of anybody using that to track people.
Well, because the police, that's the whole point. They don't just look in one spot. They look at all the spots to find out where people are going.
All right,
so they do track them.
We have to take a quick break, and we'll be back for final thoughts in a moment. Stay with us. And our guest joining us right now for final thoughts. We've been debating this through the commercial break, folks. Susan, I mean, are there a lot of people out there, is the ACLU involved in terms of trying to litigate the use of these license plate cameras? I don't necessarily know if there's a live active case involved, and we're a big organization, so I don't want to speak to that particularly, but like I said on break, we've been following this since at least 2000. We've written a lot of pieces. We've really paid attention to the legislation that's out there, and we offer our opinion to the legislators. And Bill, you make good points here, but we're living in a time when a lot of people are suspicious of the government.
Of course, right.
And they may be suspicious that, there are obviously very good police officers out there doing the right thing, but, if you have access to this information, maybe you can misuse it.
I really still don't see how, because these license plate readers read thousands of cars every day. It happens all the time. Where do you store all this information? This just doesn't happen.
I would imagine, Dwayne, that a lot of police departments like the Sarasota Police Department are trying to do their research and get back to commissioners and somehow find the right argument to change commissioners' minds and allow them to come into this city and as well as other communities.
Look, I mean, there's arguments on both sides. We're going to see surveillance cameras more and more throughout the year. So, look, this is something that they may take up sometime in the near future. Mark my words.
Okay, thank you all. Before we go, we want to share with you what some of you had to say about last night's show on the red flag legislation. Police departments across Florida are now using the brand new gun law known as red flag legislation, just passed by the state legislature. It gives law enforcement the power to remove guns and ammunition from anyone believed to be a danger to themselves or anyone else. We went to Facebook to hear your thoughts, and Diane says, who determines if you would be a danger? Julie says, probably people that need to be put under the Baker Act. I'm all for having guns, but not if you are experiencing a mental health crisis. And Zanny says, considering the Baker Act allows you to involuntarily check someone into the hospital if they pose an immediate threat to themselves or others, it's really not far-fetched to also temporarily take away that person's weapon or ammunition. And Jeff says, anyone believed to be dangerous, some dangerous person? Yeah, how could that go wrong? Well, if you'd like to join the conversation on tonight's topic, just visit our Facebook page at facebook.com/mysuncoast.com.abc7. And FYI, you can watch past discussions on demand. They're available on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, and Roku. And for the latest on local breaking news, don't forget to download the updated version of our app. If your current app doesn't work, it's expired. Just go to the App Store and re-download it by searching for WWSB or My Suncoast. We want to thank all our guests for being here tonight. Susan Nylon of the ACLU, private investigator Bill Warner, and ABC7's Dwayne Lindo.